Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to the Athletic HQ here in London, a stone's throw from the River Thames, and we are headlong into transfer deadline day. We have, 5 hours to go until the deadline, and as you can see, I have been joined by James McNicholas, who is the sage on Arsenal. We are going to be rounding up a whole load of clubs for you on this update. We'll come to Arsenal in a moment's time. We'll be speaking about Manchester United. They're in action tonight, of course, against Leicester. We'll be talking about Chelsea, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves. David Ornstein's going to be joining us as well. We'll be finding out whether a player decided to go to Leeds or Nice. Which one do you think he chose? We'll be talking about that in a moment's time. But let's concentrate on Arsenal. James, great to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, very excited. Deadline day.
You don't have to be. You can. You can say it's a bit of a pain in the arse.
No, I love it. I love it. I love the adrenaline. 5 hours to go.
Excellent. Good. Right. And there has been, let's be fair, with Arsenal, there have been sort of dramatic times over the years, but often it's very, very quiet. But not so today. What is happening?
No, Arsenal are attempting to do some business, incoming business today. We've seen some outgoing business. Hector Bellerin effectively agreed a free transfer to Barcelona. Looks like that one will go through. And Arsenal trying to add that central midfield player they've been looking for in the last few days. It's been a bit of a late scramble for them because they suffered a couple of injuries towards the end of last week. Thomas Partey and Mohamed El-Neni both picking up injuries. So that caused a bit of a pivot in their strategy. They were looking for a wide player. Then they changed tack, looked for a central midfielder. It seems they've landed on Douglas Louise of Aston Villa. Be a very familiar name to Arsenal fans because, of course, he scored against them just last night directly from a corner kick. 2 bids have been placed today. I think the first one in the region of about £20 million, second one about £23 million. Both have been rejected at this point in time. It's interesting because this morning Aston Villa were pretty insistent that they did not want to sell Douglas Louise, but his contractual situation makes things interesting. He's got 12 months remaining on his deal. As yet, there's been no real indication that he's going to sign a new one. There was some suggestion a few months ago that maybe it was going to go that way. That's gone very quiet. So they do, of course, stand the risk of losing him for free next summer or for a much smaller fee in January. So I'll be very curious to see what happens in the next few hours. I think Arsenal, to be honest, my opinion is Arsenal probably value the player up to about £25 million. Their last bid was 23. I think there might be a little bit more room there in the budget. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that offer edge up slightly, but I don't see them going much beyond that because ultimately, they see Louise as someone who's a squad player. He's going to be providing cover and competition, principally for Thomas Partey. And that's a pretty chunky fee for a player who's got 12 months left on his deal. So it's going to be interesting. Villa say they don't want to sell. Is that just positioning? They're looking at bringing in Dendoncker, of course, from Wolves. I think a fee's agreed there. That would be a midfield player coming in. Does that show a willingness to let one go? Arsenal will be hoping so because on the player side, it's a pretty straightforward deal. He would like to leave Aston Villa. He'd be comfortable coming to London. There's a good relationship with the agent there. I think it's quite an expedient deal for Arsenal to do. That's played into the decision to choose Douglas Louise. It's just a question of can things be sorted out between the clubs? And we've got 5 hours to find out.
And in terms of the window as a whole for Arsenal, obviously this is more of a necessity rather than one that is going to take them up to the next level in any way. We've seen that with Gabriel Jesus. It's someone that was needed. Is there a feeling that, we know that performances and results are going well, but this squad is well set?
I think Arsenal are actually really happy with the business they've done in this window. And we've seen that on the pitch. I mean, obviously 5 wins from 5. They're in terrific form in the Premier League. The impact of particularly Gabriel Jesus, but also Alexander Zinchenko, proven winners who know the league. They've come in, hit the ground running, to be honest. William Saliba's come back from a loan spell, looking like a tremendous player to have in the squad. And I think as well as that, there are some unknown quantities. I mean, Fabio Vieira is probably one of the least talked about £30 million signings you'll ever know because he didn't really have a pre-season. So not a great deal of hyper expectation is built around him. But Arsenal really believe in this guy's talent. He can play in that midfield area. He can play more advanced as well. He's played as a second striker, played on the wing. I think there's a lot more to come from him. Barely seen him kick a ball in an Arsenal shirt yet. So Arsenal come into this deadline day pretty content with what they've done to this point. And as I say, they were hoping to add a wide player. You'll remember they pursued Rafinha, who ultimately chose Barcelona. They looked very closely at Pedro Neto of Wolves. That proved an impossible deal to do, really. Signed a new contract in the spring, a 5-year deal. Wolves didn't want to sell. The price would have been extremely high to force them to change their mind. They had to look at the guy Mudryk, of course, who's at Shakhtar Donetsk, who we also saw Brentford bid for, and I think Everton looked at closely. Just those injuries, they forced them to change course a little and look at that midfield area. And when you look at their fixture list, you can understand why, because Arsenal, they're back in Europe. They've got the Europa League to contend with. They've got a couple of injuries in that part of the pitch. And once we get into October, you've got a situation where Arsenal are playing something like 10, 11 games in the space of a month, playing every 3-4 days. They need that depth. They need that variety. And Louise, he would make sense. It's a player that Arteta knows very well from their time at Manchester City. It's a player Edu knows. He's someone who's been part of the Brazil international setup. I think won an Olympic gold medal with Brazil just last summer. It's a squad that Martinelli was part of. And also just a proven Premier League player. And that's been a big part of the strategy we've seen at Arsenal, signing Premier League players. You think back to last season, Aaron Ramsdale, Ben White, this season, Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus. I think they've made a decision. When they bring people in, it's very beneficial if there's someone who knows the league, knows the culture, can hit the ground running. And that's what they think they're going to get in Douglas Luiz. And he's the right kind of age as well, 24. You look at Arsenal's midfield, you've got Mohamed El Neni, Granit Xhaka, Thomas Partey, all late 20s, about 30. That does need a bit of rejuvenation, needs some younger options in there. And El Neni, I think he's got 2 years on his contract, but obviously he's picked up a significant injury. Louise is someone who you could see stepping into that spot in the squad moving forward. So I think that this is a deal that they're going to push to do. It's just a question of, the numbers at this point.
James, brilliant. Thank you very much.
My
As
pleasure.
always, you can, of course, read the words of James McNicholas on The Athletic. I'll let you toddle off if you wish. You can do it live on camera. Go on.
Yeah, go on. That's me toddling.
There you go. Brilliant. Thanks, James. And we will, of course, have a series of pieces in the aftermath of the transfer window closing, just going in depth on how each respective side's transfer window actually unfolded. And there'll be plenty of detail in there. There might be a few pieces as well on The Athletic about some of the things that we might not necessarily have been able to write at the time. But there'll be some interesting things popping up on The Athletic after this transfer window has closed. Of course, in England, it is at 11 o'clock. Right. I can see that Phil Hay is ready to speak to us. And we mentioned about a player who had the choice between Nice or Leeds. And Phil Hay, the man in the know on Leeds, can bring us right up to speed with exactly what I'm talking about and the choice that Bamba Dieng has ultimately made. Do we know definitively yet, Phil?
No, we're yet to hear definitively that he's said yes to Nice, but this has swung really dramatically since lunchtime when, as far as Leeds were concerned, they had an agreement with Marseille over a fee for Dieng. They had an agreement with Dieng over a contract which would have run for 4 years. There was a flight booked into England. They were expecting him to be on it. They were expecting him to be in the country by now and ready to undergo a medical in time to sign before the 11 o'clock deadline. As it is, he's remained in France. He's still at the airport terminal over there because he has this rival offer on the table, which he's clearly considering very seriously. Leeds have had difficult deadline days in the past, and more than one. This is shaping up to be as difficult and as bad as any of them. They clearly hoped that last night they would get a deal for Cody Gakpo over at PSV Eindhoven. That hasn't happened. They were very quick onto negotiations for Dieng this morning to try and get that one moving. And I think extremely confident that would be done. The chairman, Andrea Radrizzani, tweeted earlier saying, talking about welcoming him to Leeds, clearly expecting that would cross the line. But as it is at the moment, serious doubt about this one, real doubt about whether it will happen.
And what is the knock-on effect of that? Obviously, missing out on a previous target, maybe missing out on this one. There was obviously talk about Dan James heading in out of the club. Is that going to impact upon his potential move if they were looking at bringing in another attacker?
Well, it'll impact in a couple of ways. Firstly, they need a forward. They need a forward in the squad, and they're badly short of time now. And this will have caught them on the hop in a big way because they did think that they had Dieng and that it would happen for them. Dan James has been down at Fulham. Fulham have lined up a season-long loan deal for him. Yet to be told that won't go ahead as was planned. And the difficulty with Dan James is that he has only been at the club for a year. He was signed a year ago yesterday, deal of £25 million with Manchester United. And the way things have gone in the past week, it's made it very clear to him, even though he wanted to stay at Leeds and wasn't minded to move on, it's made it very clear to him that if not surplus to requirements, he was somebody that Leeds saw as expendable, and would expend if they found somebody else who they could bring in. In those circumstances, it strikes me as incredibly difficult to bring him back and to expect him to carry on in the squad as before. Perhaps ultimately they might have to do that, but at the moment we certainly haven't been told that Dan James to Fulham is off. It's become a really messy situation from a position around about lunchtime where it all seemed to be in hand.
We're going to be speaking to Laurie Whitwell in a moment's time, who's at the King Power Stadium ahead of Leicester against Manchester United. But just one other quick word with you, Phil, on Dan James. He's no stranger to being, well, what word can I use? Shifted around on deadline day, famously.
Well, obviously, he famously had the move to Leeds in 2019, which didn't happen at the death from Swansea City. He'd done his signing photos, he picked his squad number, it was good to go, and then Swansea refused to process the deal. It was deadline day again last year when it went through, right at the end, August the 31st. And here he is again in the mix. I suspect that he will not be far off doing signing photos if he hasn't already done them. You know, he is right in that same situation. And as I say, I think the bigger problem with him is that he did want to stay. It wasn't in his mind to leave Leeds. Leeds have made it clear that they felt that it would be worth his while going elsewhere, that it might be worth their while financially letting him go if Dieng was coming in. That does create a big problem, because to go back to him and now say, listen, we need you and we want you to be part of the squad is going to require some diplomacy if they decide to do it. And I'm not sure that they will.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. Phil, thank you very much indeed. We're going to be on, obviously, for quite some time. So if it does actually transpire and we get definitive information on Dieng having chosen Nice rather than Leeds, which is to some people might sound quite a simple choice, but it is a footballing decision rather than just simply a location decision. Do come back and let us know what's going on. Right, let's bring on Laurie Whitwell, our Manchester United reporter. We spoke to you this morning, Laurie. You have now made the move to Leicester. There is a game going on amongst all of this, Leicester against Manchester United. I think it was just after we left you this morning that the signing of Anthony was finally announced. I mean, obviously people aren't expecting him to see him this evening in action, but is there a lift, the fact that there has been some significant business done today?
Yeah, I guess it's always a funny one, isn't it, having a match on transfer deadline day. Fortunately for United, they've kind of got all the business now done as an incoming and also outcoming, although we're still waiting on James Garner being confirmed at Everton. And the good news, I suppose, from Manchester United perspective on Anthony is the fact that he's now registered. So Sunday's game against Arsenal, he is available for. It's up to Erik ten Hag if he wants to pick him, if he feels his fitness is up to scratch. Obviously, he's been away from training at Ajax for the last few days, so whether or not he needs a little bit more game time before making his debut, we can see. But yeah, the fact that he's actually available for selection for Sunday is a boost.
And just one other quick question, because I'm sure you want to get inside and get a pre-match meal and all that malarkey, and find out what the team news is and all that sort of important stuff. Get on the live match discussion on The Athletic and all. In terms of the subplot of Cristiano Ronaldo, can you just sum up his situation in a soundbite?
Yeah, I mean, unless something incredibly dramatic happens in the final few hours, he's going to be a Man United player until at least January. Clearly, that's been the big story of the summer. Is he going to go? He wanted to leave. I wonder if he's got his head a little bit back more into staying at United. There's been more signings, at least, to give him encouragement. Clearly, he's going to be rotating in and out of the team as per Erik ten Hag's selections. But yeah, he's going to be a player. And it will be a really interesting dynamic to see how that develops. A player of his calibre and his fame and renown, having a more peripheral role than perhaps as a centre forward. Scored 24 goals last season. So really interesting one to observe as it goes on.
Laurie, brilliant work to the whatever hair product you're using today in difficult conditions. All the very best. Have a great evening. Enjoy the game.
Cheers, guys.
You'll be able to read the words of Laurie Whitwell on The Athletic. The match discussion for that game is available, of course, as well on theathletic.com. And that's the place to go if you haven't subscribed as yet. We're coming to you live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. This is our third live show. We are also going to be live with you through the deadline this evening at 11 o'clock. Right. We are going to be speaking to David Ornstein, hopefully a little bit later on. He's making various calls on some big deals that are potentially going to happen today, one of which is involving Chelsea. And the man who covers Chelsea in depth for us amongst our team of Chelsea reporters is Liam Toomey, who joins us now. And we're expecting, Liam, good to see you, by the way, a new signing, a new striker to come in and score the goals and make everything all right in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Is that developing as far as you're concerned? It's all happening?
Yeah, I believe it's done. That he will be a Chelsea player with Marcus Alonso going the other way, finally getting his wish of a move to Barcelona. He's been waiting for several weeks now. I mean, we know these talks have been going along for a long time. It's something that the Chelsea ownership has been back and forth on, the need to go for Aubameyang, because he doesn't really fit the profile of player that they've targeted in this window. Usually he's a bit older. He's certainly not a long-term investment, but he is a player that's worked really well with Thomas Tuchel in the past. And I think early this season has shown, Raheem Sterling aside, that Chelsea do need more firepower up front. So he's certainly someone who can come in and address that.
Is that the thing? I mean, time can often distort things a little bit to almost be relying on the fact that partnership of Tuchel and Aubameyang in the past will just simply be able to catch light once again in England and at Stamford Bridge. Is that wishful thinking, or is there a great confidence that this is almost designed and has had big influence from Tuchel?
Well, I think it's someone that Tuchel has been pushing for. Chelsea knew that Aubameyang was available ever since Barcelona went out and signed Lewandowski. He became a bit more superfluous there. But of course, you're right. A lot of time has passed since he had the best scoring season of his career at Borussia Dortmund under Tuchel. It's a different league, a very different environment. And Aubameyang is a different player now. He's 33. He's not quite got the explosive speed that he used to have. He's still a clinical finisher and still has great instincts in around the box. And I think as long as he has the energy to play within Chelsea's system, Tuchel will be confident of where to fit him in. But certainly Tuchel has been the primary advocate of this deal.
And just a word on Chelsea's transfer window as a whole. I think it wouldn't have escaped many people's attention that Todd Boehly, the new sort of owner, the new man behind the big push, has featured quite a lot in signing photos, in particular the Wesley Fofana one. And it's been an interesting dynamic to this transfer window that has basically been the big transition from the Abramovich era to the new era. Is the assessment from your point of view that it has been a successful one?
I think we'll only know that in time, honestly.
Yeah.
I hate to punt that one down the road, but I mean, it's clear the ambition that they're showing. This is a vast initial investment, I think, well beyond most people's expectations. It could be around £250 million by the time all is said and done. And they've largely invested in younger players as well. So I think Todd Boehly and Clear Lake Capital, their vision has been quite clear that they want to set Chelsea up to compete right now, but also be a sustainable contender in the Premier League and Champions League. And now that they've spent this much, and Thomas Tuchel hasn't got every player that he requested, but he's got a few notable picks, including, of course, Aubameyang, he'll be judged on that spending and he'll be expected to deliver and make it work.
And just one final one. Is there any other peripheral transfers that are happening? And presumably Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is the main one. There's not going to be a massive other curveball coming in, is there?
Well, it doesn't look like Edson Alvarez is happening. There's just been a report that Chelsea could be looking at Dennis Zakaria at Juventus. We're still working to try and establish the substance of that one. But certainly Chelsea would like a midfielder, given the current situation in the squad, if possible. But I don't think they want to commit massive resources to do so. And in terms of outgoings, they're selling Billy Gilmour to Brighton, which is a deal that I think quite a few Chelsea fans are a bit dismayed about, especially the fee, which we understand to be in the region of £9 million. But Thomas Tuchel had made it very clear that Gilmour wasn't in his plans. He wasn't even given a squad number until quite recently. So that looks to be a good deal for the player. And now Chelsea's focus is announcing Aubameyang, I'm sure, to plenty of fanfare, and maybe getting a midfielder. But I think that's pretty much the extent of things.
And maybe getting in the signing photo as well. We will see. Liam, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your deadline day. We may well catch up a little bit later on in our final show as we head through the deadline. We are going to be speaking to Greg Evans very, very shortly indeed about Aston Villa. We'll be getting the latest on the situation at Villa Park. A couple of incomings are expected. And we will also discuss the form of the side and the future of Steven Gerrard as well. I just wanted to flag something for you, because we have obviously passed the deadline now in Germany. That closed at 5 o'clock. The Italian deadline is at 7 o'clock. It's obviously 11 o'clock here in England. It's 12 o'clock in Scotland. And then there are other markets available if clubs are either trying to offload players or if players are desperate to leave. Elsewhere in the world, the likes of Belgium doesn't close until September the 6th, Czech Republic, September the 8th, Turkey, the same day, September the 8th, the likes of Greece as well, September the 15th. So if players don't necessarily go right now, they may well go after the deadline this evening at 11 o'clock. Will you look at that? There's Greg Evans waiting to come on. In you come. How are you?
Hello, Adam. Doing a fantastic job, mate.
Thank you very much. Come on in. Come and make yourself home. Stand on square. Let's square off like a good back line, a good defensive back line. And that brings us on to Aston Villa. Not been going so well for the club. We'll talk about maybe the form in a moment's time, but let's deal with what's pending at the moment. What are we expecting to happen?
Yeah, a couple of deals Villa are trying to put together at the moment. Jan Bednarek, a loan deal, which we've been reporting for a while from Southampton. They've been sort of looking at a few other defenders, but have now decided they want Bednarek. So we're waiting for that deal to happen. And Leander Dendoncker, the utility man from Wolves, Steven Gerrard, we understand, spoke to him last night after the defeat to Arsenal, and Villa are hoping to get that deal done, as well as David Ornstein revealed this morning.
The situation with Douglas Louise, obviously, it will be not necessarily solved because they're not exactly the same player, but with Dendoncker coming in, as far as Louise leaving, obviously had a half decent night last night, scoring from a corner at the Emirates. Is that expected to definitely happen?
Well, no, it's far from it. I mean, Villa have been saying for the last 24 hours at least, anyway, that they do not want to sell this player. Arsenal are obviously testing their resolve now. They've had a couple of bids rejected. It'd be interesting to see how high Arsenal will go and whether Villa will end up selling him. Look, we know that he's only got 8-9 months left on his deal, so he could potentially leave. He could be leaving, Villa for free next summer. Will Villa want to cash in? The messages that we're told is that they definitely don't want to sell him, but we've seen stranger things happen on deadline day, haven't we?
It's a hell of a lot of money to turn down if you are also bringing another player in, or is he that essential?
Well, I mean, look, Stephen. I asked Steven Gerrard the question last night, and he said it's a deal that the club might still work on. He didn't fully commit to the player staying. He said that he likes him as a player, fantastic player, but he hasn't played that often this season. He's been very good from corner kicks, but he hasn't started every single game. I think, look, he's been at Villa for 3 years. I've watched a lot of him from the very first day that he came. I don't think he's a defensive midfielder. I think he's better as a number 8 or, in that more advanced midfield role. I'd like to see him in that position a little bit more. It'd be sad to see him go now, but if Arsenal put up in a really good offer, Villa might consider it. The
big narrative for Villa during this window was we're going to bring in a new striker, most probably. Hasn't necessarily happened, and there's been a bit of, not necessarily, well, from the outside looking in, there hasn't necessarily been a clear, defined approach to, I know who my best front three are or how I want to play in terms of the attacking side of things. What's your take on it?
I mean, look, Villa have got 5 very good attackers in Danny Ings, Ollie Watkins, Leon Bailey, Cameron Archer, who, is a young lad coming through, and Philippe Coutinho, and also Emi Buendia as well. So, look, there are 6 good attacking options there. I do think the real test for Villa now is to get the best out of what they've currently got in there. But, you know, there was the talk of Luis Suarez at the start of the window. Believe it or not, that was this transfer window. It's amazing how you know, how long ago that feels. Suarez was more interested in coming than Villa were of having him, if that makes sense. We know, and you know, obviously, Adam, as well, with your Watford links, that Villa went in for Ismaila Sarr. They agreed a fee with Watford, but couldn't get the deal done. Steven Gerrard come out publicly and said it just wasn't right. They have been looking at attacking options. Lucas Moura at Tottenham's another one. A few things needed to fall into place for him to come in today. Still a few hours left, so we'll wait and see on that one. But Villa have looked at options, but if they don't get another attacker, I don't think it's the end of the world, because they do have some very good quality options still. It's getting the best out of them. That's the problem. For me, Watkins and Ings as a partnership haven't really worked. Leon Bailey, you know, we've heard from his father and agent saying, you know, he didn't come to England for this, to be sitting on the bench. Philippe Coutinho hasn't quite, you know, kicked on as much as we should. No goals, no assists, only 3 chances created this season. It's getting the best out of them because there's quality in that group.
And just a final word on Steven Gerrard in particular. He's having a tough time at the moment. How do you think he's dealing with it?
It's a really tough time for him. Yeah, it's probably the toughest part of his managerial career. You know, he had struggles at Rangers in that first season, but came through. Villa aren't playing very well at all. There's a different problem every week, which is the real concern now. They've lost 4 of their first 5 games. If Leicester win tonight, they're bottom of the league. They've got Manchester City next. It's not looking good for them. But look, you know, there's probably 3 games he's got now to that are really important to him. You know, Man City, Leicester, and then Southampton. If you can get a couple of results and get Villa going, then who knows? You know, there might be a change of momentum.
We shall see. Greg, thank you very much indeed. Pop back if anything develops in the next few minutes or so. So that is the latest from Aston Villa. Where are we going to go next? I just wanted to bring you up to date with a couple of deals that have happened since we were last with you. There's been plenty of activity at Fulham, for example. We were hearing about Dan James as well. They have signed Kazawa. Hasn't been officially announced yet. Willian has gone there. Everton have been busy. Idrissa Gana Gueye is headed back to Everton. Martin Dubravka has headed to Manchester United. That's David Walker. Thank you very much indeed. Right. So let's see where we're going to go next. And it is the latest on Newcastle. And that is going to be brought to us by someone who loves deadline day. But it hasn't been particularly busy for Newcastle. Here's Chris Woff.
So it's been a quiet transfer deadline day so far as incomings are concerned for Newcastle United. The majority of the business has already been concluded, and although they've been looking for a midfielder potentially on loan, as of yet that is looking unlikely. Yuri Tillemans of Leicester City, Douglas Louise of Aston Villa, Leander Dendoncker of Wolverhampton Wanderers, Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. These are just some of the players Newcastle have considered over the course of the last few days. But as of yet, it doesn't look like they've been able to conclude anything in that regard, and they may keep the powder dry in that sense until January. They are looking to bring in an under-21 fullback, Harrison Ashby from West Ham United, very highly rated. He would be backup for Kieran Trippier and even maybe Javier Manquillo, given that Emil Kraft has suffered his ACL injury, which will unfortunately keep him out until March at least, and will probably mean he is left out of the Premier League squad. So elsewhere, Newcastle have been looking to move players on. Martin Dubravka has already joined Manchester United on loan for the season, although my understanding is it contains a recall clause in January, and also the move can be made permanent by either Manchester United deciding to, or if a certain number of appearances are met. Federico Fernandez looks like he's going to be heading to Elche in Spain. Matty Longstaff has also headed out on loan to the EFL, to Colchester United. And so Newcastle are basically look like they're just about done with incomings. Ashby might be the last one if he does come through the door, but Newcastle are happy with what they've done so far, even if ideally they probably would have liked a midfielder and maybe even a winger too.
Okay, that's Chris Woff just bringing us up to date with what's going on at Newcastle. It sounds pretty peripheral, doesn't it? No big deals at the moment with how many hours have we got to go? Less than, it's 4.5, isn't it? Yeah, 4.5. My maths is so bad. Okay, 4.5 hours to go until the deadline here in England. Right, so we dealt with Newcastle. Let's bring bring you up to date with what's happening at Bournemouth. Obviously, there's been a change of manager very recently, with Scott Parker leaving. Where are you, Ahmed? I'm looking up. There you are. When I looked that way, I thought you were there, and I thought, it doesn't matter. Right. Ahmed Shubel, how are you? Very, very good to see you. Obviously, our coverage of Bournemouth. Come on in. There you go. There's been a few bumps in the road, let's say, over the last week. Obviously, that absolute annihilation at Anfield and Scott Parker leaving. In terms of the window, people would think, right, well, there needs to be massive surgery, but it's not happening, is it?
Yeah, it's been quite a quiet day so far, a lot quieter than I and a lot of Bournemouth fans would have expected. So far, only Jack Stevens through the door on loan from Southampton. The club are working on a few other attacking reinforcements. Just in the last couple of minutes, I'm hearing that Nathan Redmond and Antoine Semenyo from Bristol City are a couple of options that the club are considering. Nothing advanced yet, so that might well go straight into the night. But the issue that Bournemouth have at the minute is that, so as things stand with the Stevens signing, they have 26 players they have to register for the Premier League squad. That's obviously one more than the 25-man quota. So they have an issue where either at least one player would have to leave or risk being unavailable for selection, really. And Bournemouth won't want a player on their wage bill that they can't use, really. But they're finding it very difficult to offload fringe players, in part due to Parker's dismissal, I think, because you have fringe players like, for example, Emiliano Marcondes, who was, I guess, surplus to requirements from Parker as far as Parker was concerned. But now that he's gone, both the club and player are keen for things to stay as they are and for him to stay at the club. And moves for Siriki Dembele. It's kind of, the news on that has kind of dried up in terms of his move to Besiktas. So, yeah, they're finding it difficult to offload those players. And there's also a feeling within the club that Parker's comments, which obviously led to his dismissal, makes it very difficult for Bournemouth to attract highly touted talents. I think that's fair to say. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tricky situation, but the club is still working hard. So this one could go long into the night.
Yeah, it's a tough sell, isn't it? And Parker hasn't necessarily helped the situation. But then I guess the most important thing is the players that are at the club at the moment, and they did actually come up with some sort of response against Wolves. In terms of obviously the transfers are the main focus of today. Are we any closer to knowing who might be filling Parker's boots in the dugout?
Not any closer, no. As far as I understand it, that's, I guess, a bridge that the club are looking to cross after deadline day, as you can probably imagine. But then again, that makes it difficult. How can you convince players to come to a club if they don't know who the manager they're playing for? They're not really, understanding how whatever new manager comes in is gonna rate them or how they're going to be used or whatever. So that is a massive elephant in the room for them. But as things stand, all I've been told so far is that they're looking for a progressive manager to get the most out of the attacking players that they have in the squad.
Interesting. We will see what happens. Ahmed, thank you very much for coming on. I'll let you get back and check in with what's going on. We are now going to I'll just point out to you a couple of things that are going to be coming up. And they are that David Ornstein will hopefully be joining us before the end of the show, which we started at 6 o'clock. We go on until 7. My brain is a little bit frazzled, I must admit. We will also be getting the latest on Southampton. Jacob Tanswell will be coming on to tell us what's going on with that. We'll also speak about Wolves as well. But now, just for something just a little bit different for you, just a little bit of a breather. Okay, so what we're going to do for you now is just take you on a little bit of a walk on this latest live show on The Athletic. And this is the rest of the newsroom. Various things are going on. Various essential sustenance is being taken on board. There's the foosball table, which is very important. Now, that is the main Athletic newsroom area as we've been broadcasting to you live. And this through here is where Tifo live. Yes, Tifo, the wonderful world of Tifo. And before we go in, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. On deadline day in particular, they've got an amazing opportunity to show what they can do very quickly by reacting to signings. And one of those signings which Liverpool are going to be making, of course, is the signing of Artur Melo from Juventus. And John McKenzie from the Tifo Football Podcast is here. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. Busy.
This is your little home, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been chained to this tactics board and I would love to get out. But yeah, it's a busy day, so plenty of things for us to get our teeth into. So
yeah, no, look, it's good to come into this room because we wanted to just show you exactly how it all works. Many of you will be familiar with Tifo and how it all works, and these great sort of tactics analysis videos just showing exactly what's going on and having to react very quickly, especially with this Artur signing.
Yeah, so Artur was announced this morning. It kind of came out as a little bit from left field, so it's just a case of finding out the sort of context, background, what's the movements that he's made in his career, but also watching a lot of tape. So we use Y-Scout, have a look at the way that he's been playing and the systems that he's been playing in, and then just have a think about how we could take Artur on the board here and fit him into this Liverpool side and what Liverpool are going to see him as I guess a squad asset. So yeah, it's really quick turnover time. You have to get really good at sort of picking up the narrative threads really quickly and gathering them together into something that is listenable or watchable, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's obviously you've been doing that, and people obviously will have seen them before, post-match as well, just trying to sort of pull apart the main tactical themes of games. In terms of this and, you know, what we're hoping to see from Artur when you've got him filling in for a role, you know, for Henderson or Thiago, how do you sort of extrapolate that into this tactics board?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing about Artur is that he started out, his career was brilliant in the Brazilian leagues. He comes over to Barcelona and then Juventus, and almost feels a little bit like a political pawn in some of those moves. So there's a swap deal with Miralem Pjanic from Juventus, goes the other way. It feels a little bit more like an off-field thing, and he just never really fits in at Juventus. So the big question that I have is, okay, we know that he can play really well in the Brazilian league. Is the fact that he hasn't hit it off in Europe so much to do with the fact that he isn't suited to that level, or is it just these on-field things have just machinated against him? And so, the big question for me is like, how do we sort of take all of these different leagues and take a player from them and stick them into another league and see how it all fits together?
Just to finish off, can you just have a little fiddle?
Yeah, what do you want me to do? I can draw you some lines. Oh, it's not working.
That would be great.
This always happens. I'm doing my live videos and I'm like, okay, I'll do this, and then I have to do the retakes. But the videographers make me look better, so I can draw pictures. I can draw a smiley face for you there. Look at that. So yeah, this is where I'm at. We can also do slideshow stuff. So I've got Artur's data, can compare it to Thiago as well. So yeah, all to play for. You don't see any of the messing around bits really on the videos because, like I say, the videographers can just make me look slick as anything. So they're the real heroes.
Oh, John, that is wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. We will let you crack on. Let's take you back into the Athletic newsroom because we've got more to get through on this live show. Hello. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Let me just head through here, and then we will be able to take you back to where our live point is in the studio. Obviously, we are building up all the way to the 11 o'clock deadline here, and we'll be able to round up all of the news for you via our live blog and things like that. So, right, let's get back into position now, and we can pick up our next guest. Here we go. Yeah, we can indeed. So, yeah, we were just down there, just round the corner there, with the Tifo boys. You can actually see that video right now if you follow Tifo on social media, on YouTube as well. John in action earlier on. And obviously, if there are any other deals that go through towards the end of this deadline day, then they will be reacting, and you can check them out on Tifo. Right. We've got around about 20 minutes to go. Still hopeful of getting David Ornstein on, but I know that he is very busy at the moment. We're going to be talking about Wolves 2. That is coming up. Jacob Tanswell is here. Come on in, Jacob. How are you?
All good. Busy, but yeah, going well, and hopefully Samson secure some deals in the next couple of hours or so.
Yeah, so obviously, if you're not au fait, Jacob covers Southampton for us. It's been an encouraging start to the season. Are you still sort of encouraged by what you're hearing in terms of your sources that there is going to be more activity.
I think the theme throughout the summer has been Sport Republic, the new ownership, in terms of being proactive. And although things have been a little bit slow going today, it's just been about getting the houses in order, everything ready. And you hope in the next couple of hours we'll see a lot of outgoings, but also incomings as well. And for a team that historically doesn't really do much on deadline day, it's quite a refreshing change.
Who are we expecting in?
We got Coletta Carr from Marseille. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was signed on a season-long loan with an option to buy, and 2 Manchester City players as well. So it's going to be a busy time, and hopefully some of the old guard as well, who've been throughout Ralph Hasenhüttl's tenure, move out as well.
Yeah, the likes of Jack Stevens has gone out to Bournemouth. Maybe Nathan Redmond?
Yes, what we're hearing now is that Bournemouth are in talks with Southampton about Nathan Redmond. Of course, they can't loan another player from Southampton, so it's just whether they're just deciding whether to buy him for a couple of million or try and convince Southampton to terminate this contract.
And there is a feeling of a proper rebuild, isn't there?
Yeah, full of teenagers, and it's a brave new world. But I think if it pays off, the scope for potential is it's massive, isn't it? Really, I think Romeo Lavia, you've seen him. Bella Kotchap, he's been fantastic recently, and these guys signed for £25 million combined. And I think Southampton view these players as 100 million, getting 100 million between them in a year, 2 years time. So yeah, certainly promising.
And the fact that Ralph Hasenhüttl, he's seen, we've mentioned bumps in the road with a couple of other reporters, but he has had some significant ones, but he has stuck with it. And the overall strategy of the club to sort of try and reinvent itself this summer is quite intriguing, isn't it?
It's precarious for sure, but I think you've got to give Southampton a lot of credit, because it's quite easy just to sack the manager, but they've decided to rewire everything around him. He's got a whole new coaching network. He's got a recruitment team. Joe Shields is coming from Manchester City. For once, the Sport Republic, the owners have been really proactive. So he's actually getting some support now. And you hope that, especially after the start of the season where it's been quite good, there's a lot of positivity, that they can just kick on now and not be in that period, in that area between 16th and 18th, which they seem to be every year. So, there's a lot of optimism around Southampton.
Jacob, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers. I'll let you crack on. That is great. We are, just heading towards 7 o'clock now. We're going to be speaking to David Ornstein very shortly indeed. I know I am promoting him a lot and wishing that he is going to turn up and speak to us on this show this evening. We are also going to be speaking to Steve Madeley, who is our dedicated Wolves reporter here at The Athletic. Just a little word as well about Watford, because I know that fans will be watching that follow Watford due to my connections as well. Obviously had that good news earlier on, which I couldn't read at all because it was in such small print about João Pedro. We told you about it before on The Athletic, incidentally, that he was going to be sticking around after those bids from the likes of Newcastle United. There was also interest from Everton as well, and also Ismail Assar too, staying with Watford for the foreseeable future. He's got 2 years left on his contract. We spoke about the Aston Villa bid with Greg Evans. There was also interest from Crystal Palace as well, but both Sarr and João Pedro staying at Watford. There is still a hope potentially that they could bring in a right back or a right wing back, but as you can see with time running out, it may well be that they have to stick with who they've got, which is Hassan Kamara, sometimes playing out of position on the right-hand side rather than the left, and Mario Gaspar, who they brought in from Villarreal, and also Jeremy Ngaki, who's been struggling with a few injuries, but hopefully he can slot in if need be for Watford. But there is still a chance that they may well bring in another player during this window. Right. Before we get to the likes of David Ornstein and Steve Madeley, we can bring in the one and only Tim Spears, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. Tim, how are you?
Very well. They've not found a chair for you yet.
No,
12 hours on your feet today. It's just a long time.
Exactly. I should actually be getting my steps up at the same time, but I'm standing very stationary. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. So, Tim, from your point of view, I wanted to just talk to you about the transfer window in general. Yeah. And, often it's a well-coined sort of point of conversation, the winners and the losers. Who's stuck out for you in terms of the best business?
It's been a bit of a bonkers window, really, sort of post-COVID, back to crazy Premier League spending levels. You probably can't look too much further than North London, I think, for two clubs that have really made some smart additions, and we've already seen in the first few games of the season Spurs and Arsenal looking pretty good, looking pretty settled, looking pretty coherent, with head coaches and recruitment teams aligned really in the players that they brought in. I Have Nottingham Forest had a good window? We won't know for.
It's been fun, hasn't it?
Might not know for a few years yet. If you throw 20 darts at a dartboard, then a couple will hit the bullseye, but a couple will hit the door as well. So, very interested to see how it pans out for them.
I know it's different. I wanted to get your take on that because, obviously, I've been covering Watford, and when Watford went up, they signed a lot of players, and sometimes it happens with Wolves, slightly different model. It was a little bit more coherent. Do you think this can work for Forest? Because they do have a good manager who did do great things last season out of nowhere in Steve Cooper.
Yeah, but it's the biggest test of his career, but by a distance, and only time will tell. But it was sort of out of necessity, really. You speak to people at Forest and who cover the club. That they've had to bring these players in. A lot of loanees last season, a lot of players that have left, and a lot of players that just didn't have the quality. So it's been a pretty impressive feat just to get all those deals over the line, and maybe more to come in the last few hours. But certainly one of the most interesting Premier League windows we've ever seen from one club, actually. So yeah, can't wait to see how they get on.
And in terms of some of the big names, we mentioned him earlier on. Cristiano Ronaldo obviously seems as if he's going to be sticking around at Manchester United, even though it is well documented that he's effectively been touted around to various clubs around the world. And he maybe wants to be playing football rather than sitting on the bench. We'll see what happens this evening at the King Power Stadium. Laurie Whitwell is there for The Athletic, by the way. But then on the other side of Manchester, you've got Erling Haaland, who's come in and just he's just hit the ground running. He looks fantastic, doesn't he? What an acquisition.
Yeah, I feel like Pep Guardiola will just be looking at all these clubs paying inflated fees and just laughing while he coughs at his cigar. Do you know what I mean? That kind of evil laugh. It's phenomenal, the start that he's made. And, the other side of Manchester, I feel like United have actually made some pretty smart recruitment, and they've had a really good couple of weeks with results combined with a couple of smart additions. But the big thing for them is that the head coach and the recruitment team and whoever's making those decisions does appear to be aligned. It does appear to be a bit of a strategy there. Certainly with Anthony coming in, they might have paid over the odds, but that's the one that the head coach really wanted. You've got to have that. Ronaldo thing is a massive issue. That's not going to go away. But I feel like they're starting to construct a coherent style of football. You can see what they're trying to do. And if you look at the additions they brought in, it's pretty smart. They've definitely paid over the odds. What is it? More than 200 million for sort of 5-6 players. But if it gets them back in the Champions League, it'll be worth it. There are two very big clubs that are going to miss out this year despite spending a lot of money. But United have given themselves a fighting chance, I think, after a disastrous few weeks earlier in the summer. And
just in general, your feelings of working on deadline day, just the feel of it, is it something that you enjoy, or do you just think, all right, let's just get this over with and we can move on and we can concentrate on normal business?
I've had an easy day today. I'm not covering a club in particular today. Mind you, Wolves are always so quiet on deadline day normally anyway that I'm not normally doing anything. So I'm just in the eye of the storm while everybody phones agents and eats pizza. It's been quite interesting. It's just become a massive thing, as you know full well, over the years. But it's definitely been a different dynamic this year. The fact that I think every Premier League club has played 5 matches, or they will have after tonight, which is quite ludicrous, really, before the end of the window. And we won't see for a few weeks or maybe even months yet, those players start to bed in. And then you've got a World Cup in the middle of it as well. It just makes it such an unpredictable season in so many ways. But that's why we like it.
Indeed, we do. Tim, thank you very much. Indeed, I'll let you get back to the pizza. It's fantastic. Yeah, the pizza just arrived just before the show started. And yeah, those boxes over there look pretty empty, which is fantastic news. Okay, Wolves were mentioned there, weren't they, by Tim? And the man who covers Wolves in depth for us on The Athletic is Steve Madeley, who has joined us now. Steve, great to see you. Hope you're well. There is activity going on. Let's just talk about centre-backs to start off with. Just bring us up to speed with the situation there, because there's been a bit of movement and maybe a bit of movement that hasn't happened.
Yeah, well, when I left Bournemouth this morning after last night's game, it looked like Craig Dawson was heading in to Wolves from West Ham. That now isn't happening because West Ham couldn't get the replacements that they wanted, so they've effectively pulled the plug on that deal. Wolves are exploring other options. Jason Denayer, the ex-Man City defender who's a free agent, is one that they've considered. But as it stands, I'm told that it's pretty unlikely now that Wolves will sign a centre back, which will be a disappointment to Bruno Lage, who made it clear last night that although he really rates the 4 young centre backs he's got, Nathan Collins, Max Kilman, Totti, and Yerson Mosquera, they are all pretty young, and he didn't really want an experienced one to replace Willy Bolly, who's gone to Forest today. So yeah, it was disappointed, but as it stands, it looks like they won't be bringing in a centre back.
And Leander Dendoncker, we spoke to Greg Evans about his imminent arrival at Aston Villa. I mean, there's obviously with Willy Bolly leaving as well, it's another familiar face that's moving away. And I suppose we mentioned a rebuild at Southampton. I suppose things are sort of evolving a little bit this window for Wolves.
Yeah, it is. It's the continued kind of breakup of Nuno's successful Wolves team, and it's kind of Bruno Lage systematically putting his own stamp on the team, and Wolves moving away from that. And yeah, Dendoncker is one who's kind of split opinion among Wolves fans. I think a lot of Wolves fans kind of felt that the time was right to move Dendoncker on, that both club and player needed a fresh start, and Villa's a good move for him. The interesting thing from Wolves' point of view now is, can they replace him? If they don't, then they kind of leave themselves with only 3 recognised senior central midfielders in Ruben Neves, Jean Moutinho, and Mateus Nunes. They're trying to bring in Boubacar Traore from Metz. Those negotiations are still ongoing. I think Wolves and certainly Bruno Lage will be disappointed if they couldn't put off a midfield signing. But I'm told that the Dendoncker move to Villa now is too far down the line, really for Wolves to call that off. So, barring any kind of issues with the medical, I think he'll be going to Villa regardless.
And what's the situation with Hwang, and would the sort of potential loss for Leeds of Dieng have an impact on Leeds trying for him again?
Potentially, but it's getting very, very late in the day now.
Yeah, it is.
Leeds were in for him, but as of 10 minutes ago, when I last checked in, Wolves had turned down the initial Leeds inquiry, and they'd heard nothing more from Leeds. So, as far as Wolves are concerned at the moment, Hwang is staying put, which is interesting because I think he's the one. As much as Bruno Lage likes him, I think he's the one who Wolves would have let go potentially for the right fee without worrying too much about replacing him, because they're well stocked in those wide forward and centre forward areas now. But oddly, he's the one who looks like he's going to stay now, whereas Bolly has gone and Dendoncker is going, barring any light hitches. They're the ones that Wolves kind of wanted to replace today, but at the moment they're probably not going to replace Bolly, and it's kind of in the balance as to whether they replace Dendoncker.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Okay, Steve, thank you very much indeed. We may well see you later on if things develop in our next live show, which is going to be at 10:30. The deadline is at 11. Amitai Winehouse is lurking with intent alongside me. Come on in. One of our news editors here at The Athletic. Great to see you. How are you?
Yeah. Good.
How's your day been?
Chaotic, I think it's fair to say.
Why?
Well, I mean, collapsed transfers going through, rejected bids, accepted bids. It's, usual stuff. It's always fun though, isn't it?
Yeah. And you've obviously got my as well on Leeds United. Yeah. That situation in particular, I mean, we were just speaking about Hwang potentially being a target, and obviously this Dieng deal. We spoke to Phil Hay earlier on, and him saying that it's not been officially confirmed that he's chosen Nice over Leeds, or has that moved on in the last couple of minutes?
Well, yeah, just before I came on, David Ornstein's just reported that he's having his medical at Nice. It looks as though Leeds have lost out in that race. Bit of a football cliche there, but so that's just happened. So yeah, it looks as though, I mean, as it stands, Leeds don't have a forward on the way, but you never know what happens between now and 11 p.m.
Is that going to be a hammer blow?
I think it's fair to say that Marsh wanted a third choice striker. Rodrigo's out for the next 3 to 4 weeks, which is what he said in his press conference today. Hwang was on the list. He's clearly wanted another number 9. Bamford is, I think it's fair to say at this point, not that consistently fit, which is a bit of an issue. Definitely wanted a third choice striker. I think Dieng wasn't the first choice on that list for the third choice, but it would have been beneficial just to have that option there, basically. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a miss for Leeds not to get someone today.
And the other things that are sticking out to you in terms of deals that need to get over the line, or ones that are buzzing around that maybe haven't quite come to the surface yet?
Well, we've just reported that, and David Ornstein's just reported that Chelsea have agreed.
That's why he's been so.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why he's been so
sorry,
absent.
This is why I've ended up on the show. Is David Ornstein is not available right
His
now.
body double.
Basically, I'm here because he's too busy, so they send me instead. He's just reported that Dennis Zakaria, Chelsea have agreed a loan deal with Juventus for him. They'll have an option to buy in there, but that's the sort of one of the deals that we've still got ahead of us. Aubameyang, obviously still not confirmed. That'd be quite interesting if that goes through. That's as it stands. Nathan Redmond to Bournemouth potentially. But yeah, as it stands, those are the ones that sort of jump out. But I'm sure there'll be a few more that crop up between now and 11.
Of course they will. Amitai, brilliant. Thank you very much. Indeed. Yeah, that was like an awards show. David Ornstein can't be here today, but coming to accept his award on his behalf is Amitai Winehouse. Fantastic. So we know where David Ornstein is. He's bringing you the news on The Athletic. You head to theathletic.com and obviously his social media as well. Check out his latest tweets and things like that, and you'll be able to read his words on The Athletic about all the deals that are developing. And you'll be able to sort of find a route through to all of those articles and all the news and all the further reading that you can do on the Athletic Transfer Deadline Day blog, which is right at the top of the app, also on your desktop as well. Just a reminder, and I do sort of hold back from doing this explainer often, but I'm going to do it now because it will come into play before we are next with you at 10:30. And that is all about the deal sheets, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, we do love a deal sheet on deadline day. Oh, here we go. Right. So basically deal sheets, they come into play for clubs that are moving in the right direction in terms of a transfer that needs to be done. They can only be submitted with all the paperwork after 9 o'clock, which will buy clubs 2 hours after the deadline. They have to be submitted before the deadline, so between 9 and 11. It buys the clubs 2 hours after the deadline, so 1 a.m. to get those deals done. So often we will find out that deal sheets are in on deals, and we won't necessarily know which ones will get over the line. So there's still a deadline after the deadline at 1 o'clock, which, to be brutally honest, when you hear that deal sheets are in and you're not quite sure what those deals are on, and you're working live throughout deadline day, it does sort of bring a little bit of dread to you that you may well have to stick around and find out exactly what is going on beyond 11 o'clock. But we will be there all the way here on The Athletic, of course. And our next live show will be live for you on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook at 10:30. We will see you then. Take care, everyone.